Welcome again, everybody, to Friends Occasionally Not Disagreeing. This is Cody, and I'm here with Dave this week. We're going to be checking out Black Panther, Wakanda Forever in our episode this week. Before we get into that, I just want to say, if you know anybody who you think might be interested in listening to us, please pass our name along to them as we're trying to get our audience building and a little bit larger here as we keep going. We're on episode 41 today, I believe. We're doing pretty well out there. We have almost 1,000 plays. We're getting close to the 1,000 play mark. So
awesome.
Yeah. So it's a big milestone coming up here. And we got about, like I said, maybe 10 weeks-ish till a year into this already, which is pretty hard to believe as well. So that's where we're at. But we haven't had our friend Dave on in a while. We just checked. It was 12 weeks ago since his last episode. So
that's crazy.
What have you been up to, Dave?
I watched the rest of She-Hulk and enjoyed it, but not enough to join you for the episode. No, I was busy that weekend. But I did listen to it, which is always hard because I always want to like yell into the void how wrong you guys are about everything. But I'm glad to be back.
Awesome. I haven't been up to too much really since last we spoke either. Just starting to finally get back into some video games here. Hopefully that's kind of my big goal. That and little exercise pretty quick here too.
Nice.
Trying to get a little health going as well. So we are recording this on Sunday night. This will drop on Monday morning, but we're doing this because it's very timely here for our topic today, which is the debut of Black Panther Wakanda Forever, which came out, I believe, Thursday, maybe Wednesday night. I always forget how those midnight releases work, but something like that.
Yeah.
So what we thought we'd do today is kind of split this episode into two parts, and the first part being spoiler free. So if you are somebody that does listen to us once in a while and just kind of wants to get your ears attached to our general impressions of what we thought of the movie without going into the details of the movie, we'll give you a little bit of that first. And then we'll, make an obvious break here where we'll get to the spoilery in detail part of the movie right after that. So let's start with Dave. What's something you wanted to bring up here to get into this movie? Was there like a expectation you had for this, or like were you excited for this movie?
Yeah, so I was marginally excited for it. The first one was not my favorite, but that's largely because it's an origin story movie, and as I've said before on the pod, I really like the second movie most often because you already know the characters. You don't have to be reintroduced. You don't have to go through how they get their powers in a superhero movie, and can really just dive into the action. That dive into the action is not really how this one worked out because of Boseman's passing. But I would say in general, I was excited about this one. I watched the trailer beforehand when it came out, which is not something I usually do, but I'm starting to do more of in the MCU. And that got me marginally hyped, or pretty much looking forward to it. How about you?
Yeah, this is a tough one because I think I was as curious how they were going to handle Chadwick's passing as much as I was this just being like the second film in the franchise. And then like just compared to the slate of 2022 movies, Multiverse of Madness, I was excited for just the possibilities of like what it would do and go crazy with. And then Thor, I think I was kind of curious about as well, just from like that movie franchise has kind of shifted tonally around all over the place through the first three. So this was probably, I don't know. I guess they were all pretty close to me as far as which one I was the most excited about this year, but probably was more curious about this one than the other two, I would say.
I think curiosity got a lot of butts and seats for Disney. I think they were clever to market it that way, letting people know that, this is going to be a tribute of sorts, but not quite explaining without seeing the movie exactly how they were going to handle everything.
Yeah, sure. I think you're absolutely right with that. I was very curious as well as was going through, because I know they had said prior to this in the news that they weren't going to recast T'Challa. That was one big thing they said. They weren't going to replace Chadwick Boseman, and they weren't going to CGI him into the movie. Also, they had said ahead of time. So with those two possibilities removed, like how do you craft a story about a character who's suddenly just not there anymore?
Yeah.
And that was really, I don't know. It's a lot to talk about with this one today, but that was one thing I was definitely interested in from like a plot standpoint of like, how do you just explain that a character's gone from the MCU like that? kind of unprecedented, I think, that
Yeah,
I can
yeah,
recall at least.
I agree. Especially such a main character in
Hmm.
the prime of his arc, you know.
Yeah. Um, well, what do you want to say here in the for without some spoilers? What were some of the comments you had here for this one?
Yeah, sure. So again, yeah, without going into spoilers, I would say overall, I recommend it. I thought that it was a really fitting tribute to Chadwick Boseman. And it could have been like it could have ended up being cheesy or ham-fisted or even downright like exploitative by
Yeah.
Disney, which I'll just say without spoiling it, there's one small part that I do feel was, but we'll
Okay.
talk about that later. But it was overall, it was very touching. I thought it was a well done pivot from whatever it was they must have had originally planned. It actually kind of all the pieces I felt fit together in a way that made it feel like they like this was what they'd planned all along. Obviously not, but um the like I said, they fit the pieces together very well.
Yeah, that's a good point I hadn't thought of really is like what this movie looked like before he passed away, like what was written up to be the plot to this.
Apparently Coogler had it all written.
Hmm.
Like he had a full script that was I don't know what level of approval,
Yeah.
but had to completely scrap that, you know.
Yeah.
Although Namor was part of it, from what I read,
Okay.
was the villain in it. So,
He was still there. So I mean, generally speaking, we kind of touched on this already, but you feel like they did him justice then in this movie without spoiling too much?
yeah, I think so. I think there were in the scenes that honored him, they made a great use of like silence
Yeah.
and the audience that I was with was also like very respectfully silent in those parts in a way that like you could feel. Um, and I thought that was really good. I will say, and I told you this yesterday, like when we were talking about it briefly, I really like MCU movies for the fun. I'm often there for the fun factor, and this was not in many ways a fun movie. Um, I would say it's like the least fun MCU offering maybe ever, but in this case, I don't think it's a bad thing because it serves as a tribute, and it also I like when the MCU branches away from the formulaic, and
Yeah.
sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. Eternals, but I thought that what they were doing here, what they were attempting here, they were successful in, and even though it's not going to make it my favorite, I think they did a really beautiful job with that part of it.
No, yeah, I'd agree. Even people that haven't seen the movie yet out there, and I know if you've seen the trailer, or even if you just knew, Black Panther or Chadwick Boseman had passed away, that kind of did set up the plot for many of the other characters in this movie, as far as like now they're reacting to this character being gone, and how does their life appear now that one lost a brother, one lost a son, and like it kind of drives a lot of these other story arcs in the movie with him being gone. So you're definitely right. It's not a quote unquote fun film. That's for sure. It's a little more serious. It's a little well, I wouldn't even say it's darker, but like it definitely deals with some real life trauma that like other movies in the MCU haven't dealt with
Yeah.
prior to this point. So I did enjoy how deep they went into the emotions on this one. It's funny you mentioned the Eternals too, because I was trying to think of like what the most deep emotional cuts of the MCU are, and I was kind of thinking of that one a little bit earlier actually too. So I know that one did not sit well with you, it sounds like here, but this one probably handled things a little bit better and was a little clearer on the message as well. So
Yeah, and I thought the performances in it were incredible. Like there's not one person who I thought did a poor job with what they were given. And like Angela Bassett killed it. Denai Guerrera killed it. Even Letitia Wright, who I almost wanted her to not do well because like just in real life, I'm not a fan of
yeah,
her philosophies and her approaches to life, but we'll get into that a little bit more later. But she did a great job with Shuri's arc, and it was really nice to see everyone really putting their best effort forward and succeeding in that.
Yeah, I agree. Not to mention that I made some notes on characters below, but like you're right, I don't think anybody stood out as like unbelievable character or like a. I hate when characters kind of flip flop with their attitude about something during the course of the film, and I didn't really see a lot of that. Like everybody pretty much stuck to their storyline they were on or their attitude about whatever it was their emotional journey was. And it is a big cast. I mean, it is and it isn't. Like it's not like the Avengers big cast because they're not all superheroes, but it is a pretty large cast in this one. It's definitely an ensemble piece again. And much like the first Black Panther was kind of a fun film because you had Chadwick obviously in the middle as the Black Panther, but it was definitely like a very female-centered film. Like all of the supporting characters were female in the movie.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the way this ran too. Or there's definitely some males in here, but it's definitely driven by, I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 females again, with some interactions with some other characters as well. But no, I like that as well. And this is just, this. I don't think this is spoilery territory, but I always loved a Superman story from back in the day, and I never read Superman. I just read about this story, but it was this idea that like he's like the strongest superhero in the world who can do anything. He can fly, he can shoot lasers, he can, heat beam, whatever, yada yada, super strength, super speed. But then there was a storyline where Lois Lane had cancer and like he was helpless. And so it's interesting, like to kind of tie that to this story. It's like this is the first time we've really seen, like in the movie, they had to address where he went, and the idea was basically that he's gone. I won't go into spoilers again here, I guess, but it was just refreshing, I think, to see that even the characters in the MCU aren't completely invulnerable. Like if something came for one of them, like a disease, for example, like they could still succumb to that, which I don't think had ever really been addressed before in the MCU. Like they're super beings, but yet, susceptible to some of the same weaknesses that humans are as well. So I kind of like that idea as a story as well. Anything else you didn't like about the film without getting into spoilers, or more things you liked about it?
Yeah, so it's interesting. Really, like my spoiler-free section in my notes here is like all positive stuff, and anything that I have that's a complaint is like I got to talk about it specifically, and would be a spoiler. So, basically, it's there's a little more good than bad in my mind. So even though I'm praising it a lot, there are complaints I have, but
yeah,
overall, I do recommend it. I think it was good, and I'll be nitpicky in the more spoilery section.
Okay. Yeah, and I'd agree. I definitely enjoyed the film. Again, like you, I'd recommend somebody go out to watch this. I can give some more details as well in there once we get to spoilery parts as well. But I just thought a couple of general comments. I already said one of these, which is one thing I really liked about the film was just the strong female performances in this one again.
Agreed.
And then secondly, I just put down I really liked about this movie that there was definitely some gray area as far as who's right and who's wrong in certain situations, or like which decision characters should make in certain situations, and those kind of had bigger ramifications for their world and their universe in the MCU. So I did like that about it as well. It wasn't just Captain America versus Red Skull. There was like, what should I do here? What's the right thing to do here?
Yeah, that's a good point.
What path should we send our people down based on decisions that are made? So, all right. Well, it sounds like both of us enjoyed this enough to tell people to go and watch it at least. So definitely go do that because we told you to. So go do that. And
then come back and listen to the rest of this.
Yeah, then come back and listen to the rest of this. So, all right. So we're going to head into heavy spoiler territory. Moving on from this point. So stop here if this is where you're stopping the podcast, and come back and play some more. Yeah, and Joe's not here, so extra reason to come listen to this.
Oh my God, yes.
Anyway. All right. let's jump into the actual movie then, with spoilers abounding. Here we go. So, do you have a spot you'd like to talk about first? Did you want to provide any kind of like plot synopsis, or just kind of work it, or what do you
I
want to
mean,
do here?
I think we can start from the beginning and we'll just kind of tangent after tangent until we think we've covered it all.
Okay.
But yeah, so when they start with Shuri like panicking to try to save her brother who's dying off screen, I thought that was good. I was worried they were gonna have him die in a fight, or like, I don't know, the fact that they had him actually succumb to an illness he was hiding, which is, how Chadwick Boseman
Yeah.
went out. I thought that that was really good. I thought it kind of made his real life situation even more real in a way.
Yeah.
Um, and she and Angela Bassett just did a great job of, showing the emotions that would immediately follow such a tragedy.
Yeah, I agree. I told Karen afterwards that I was very happy it was the opening scene, that like it wasn't dragged out to when he was going to pass on. And, 10 minutes into it was right away, like you said, like intro credits, boom, there it is. And before that, we got the really nice Marvel intro, which was all Black Panther and Chadwick Boseman, which is a pretty classy move as well,
And
I thought.
completely silent.
Yeah, that was good. I like that.
Yeah, for sure. Um, and then when we got to the the research vessel that was attacked by Namor and his people, I really liked that scene. I thought that the kind of siren singing, luring everyone to jump off the boat was really like creepy and cool. The music
Yeah.
was so good. Um, I didn't when the first person jumped off, I was like, who's this badass? Like I didn't realize I thought he was going in to like fight them. I didn't understand at
Love that.
first what was happening. Um but that was really good. I don't really understand how the two characters were like, earplugs, put them in now. And but could still hear each other talking. And also, so the woman who's here's earplugs, that was Lake Bell, who's like a good actress and a great voice actress. Like she voiced Black Widow in What If.
Okay.
And I'm a fan of hers, and I saw her on screen and I was really excited that she was going to have like a role in this film. I figured like as it went on, I was like, oh, she'll be the sole survivor from this, and then she'll go like try to get people's help. But no, she just died,
She
and
dies.
I was sad about that. It was a waste of a good actress, in my opinion.
Yeah, that was kind of neat with the sirens. You're right. I thought that was a little creepy also, because I know the character Namor, and I knew by name at least two of the other ones with him, but I don't know their people all that much, so I didn't know that was something they did. So I was kind of like you, like, what's happening right now? But that was pretty cool.
Yeah. All right, let's see what else we got. What do you think of Riri Williams? What do you think of Ironheart in this?
So at first she annoyed me,
Okay.
honestly, because she was like too boisterous. And I was like, we got toned down a little bit here. New character who's coming into this and
Yeah.
was like, man, what the hell? What? And then like she seemed to kind of dial it back
Watch
with her
the voice, Cody.
performance.
Watch the voice.
Yeah, I know. But she seemed to dial it back, and I don't know if that was supposed to be acted that way because she's like getting closer with the Wakandans as the film went on. So like they're kind of influencing her maybe to like calm down and have a different view of society. Or if the actress maybe herself just started to bring it down. But once she did a little bit, then I enjoyed her quite a bit more later in the film than I did at the beginning of the film.
I could see that. I don't know. The actress looked much older than 19 to me. Like I looked it up afterwards and she's 25, but I
Okay.
was like, why did they cast this 30 something woman to play 19-year-old Riri Williams? Um So I don't know what it is about her that just makes her look older to me, but that took me out of it. And then um she she did a lot of like when these writers are like, how do we express that this character is really intelligent? Okay, she'll be flying through the air and she'll say to herself, "Oh, differential equations." Oh, and then with she and Shuri, you're like, diffusion. Yeah. We're like, oh, okay, we got a couple of geniuses on our
That's right,
hands
we
here.
do.
Oh, but so that kind of gets old. I do so I haven't read a lot of her comics. I think I read one. And I know that she has in the comics like an Iron Man connection, like a Tony Stark connection that's very strong, and it's makes me a little sad that that won't be a thing in the MCU.
Okay.
I thought maybe that she would have a connection to Pepper Potts, or even I read online speculation that she would, at the end of the first Black Panther, the T'Challa sets up like a school in America or whatever they decide to use that building for. I can't remember. That thought that her roots might be with that, and like
Okay.
she she is only able to achieve her potential through that act that T'Challa took. I thought that would have been nice, but they just decided not to do that. But the I did enjoy the Iron Man connection with the helmet cam, with
Okay.
like the UI in front of her. It was kind of nice to see that back in the MCU and
I
have
wonder
that
if
be
maybe
like
they could
an
tie her into
homage.
like maybe like War Machine. Like he has a couple TV shows coming up, I think.
Yeah,
Armor Wars or Secret Wars. I think it's the Nick Fury one. Armor Wars maybe and something else. But they could tie maybe into like Rhodey maybe somehow. That could be like you remind me of
that's
Tony,
true.
haha, Iron Man, Ironheart or something like that.
I mean, yeah, Ironheart has her own show coming up soon, right?
I don't know actually. Does she? She
I
might.
think she does, and I kind of wish that that had already been, and so when she comes into this, it's a crossover
Okay.
instead of bringing in a character that the audience doesn't know. I don't know. I like crossovers. I'm a sucker for them.
Yeah. Well, it'll be crossover the other way now, but
And now it's a spin-off though instead of a
oh, I
crossover.
see. I see.
So
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
let's see what else. I thought that Okoye was great in this. Like
Yeah.
that fight on the bridge was just incredible. And like I the performance really I could feel how much she wanted to protect Shuri and her promise that she had made to Queen Ramonda, and like the agony that she felt when she failed to do so was like very real. Um, so not only the performance, but also just like the fight, the action sequence, which this film didn't have a ton of really. But that was one of the cooler sequences. That whole escape really from
Yeah.
Ironheart's lab, and the chase and all the different elements of that were very entertaining.
Yeah, the spear fight, if you want to call it that, on the bridge was pretty awesome. But yeah, I think you're definitely right with Okoye because the first Black Panther, and then she was in what at least Infinity War and probably Endgame, and
Yeah.
um, we've really only seen the like I can kick your ass with a couple side jokes here and there side of her, and this one definitely like she cried. I don't know how many scenes in this movie, for different reasons. The passing, and then the when she lost her spear, and like she had a much wider range of emotions for her character, which was nice to see. And like you said, I think she really did a fantastic job acting out those scenes as well.
This is jumping ahead, but what did you
Yeah,
think of her getting a suit? Her and Nakia getting a suit at the end of it.
that was kind of weird. I don't know how I felt about that.
I really agree.
It kind of didn't fit necessarily the aesthetic that they've kind of gone for in Wakanda for the first films.
Didn't fit the aesthetic, didn't fit the character, and it really drove home the point that like every time she wants to say something, she's got to like nano her face mask away so that she can like say the quippy line, and then it comes back on, and then she stabs the guy. Like
Mm.
it drove me a little crazy that they did that to her.
Yeah, I kind of expected her to get her spot back in the guard, but I know I was reading Easter eggs about the movie after we were done watching it, and apparently the Midnight Angel suit she's in is like a spin-off of basically the Wakandan protectors go into two branches in the storyline, I guess, and one of them is the Midnight Angels, and the other is the Dora Milaje. What's that? The
Dora
name of it?
Milaje, yeah.
Yeah. So there's two different groups eventually, I guess. So I don't know if they're doing that to start that or what, but it did seem a little weird. Looked a little weird. Yes.
I really liked when after she failed and she was kind of standing up for herself in the throne room, or trying to beg the queen to give her a second chance, and Ramonda was like, no, I remember what you did in Black Panther 1, you jerk. Like, I thought that was great that they called back to that and didn't have the character just conveniently forget, and actually leveraged that somewhat betrayal as a conflict between the two characters in this one. And it was nice that they mentioned what's his face, her husband or her man.
T'Chaka. Is that who you mean?
No,
Or
no,
you mean,
no.
oh,
I mean Okoye's
oh yeah.
guy who's I don't know, vaguely in jail or something.
Yeah.
Not he I read that like the actor wasn't available, and I don't really think they would have had a place for him anyway.
Yeah.
So that all worked out fine, but I appreciated the mention rather than just a dropped character.
Yeah, I agree. And I know especially you're really big on like the world building part, as I am too, but like, just kind of fleshing out like those characters are out there. We didn't forget about them. Don't worry, audience. Not that most of the audience was probably looking for her husband anyway, but
Well, speaking of characters who were dropped for a long time, Nakia's back,
yeah.
and
Whoop, whoop.
and at the very end of it, maybe we'll save this, but they kind of justify why she's been gone so long, which is nice.
Yeah.
I don't know. I always thought it was weird that like they featured her in the first Black Panther, never before and never since, and it was always really weird. So it's nice to see her again and kind of understand the reasons why.
Yeah, and she was like Lupita Nyong'o, right?
Yeah.
She was when the Black Panther 1 came out, she was like kind of one of the Hollywood it girls around that time period too, I feel like. And when she was cast in the movie, I kind of expected she was going to have a larger role than she did in Black Panther 1. So I felt like she was kind of underused as an actress, maybe not as a character, but underused as an actress in the first one. So I was happy to see her get some more screen time in this one.
Yeah. And a suit. Woo!
And a suit, baby.
Everyone gets a suit.
They should have just saved them all from Iron Man 3. Suits for everyone.
There you go.
You get a suit. You get a suit. Okay, where are we at here? Plot wise. Go back to this. Oh, we get we got the Riri Williams part already in there, but we get the return of Everett Ross in this one as well. Martin Freeman's character is back, and he's been in a couple things now in the MCU.
I mean, Martin Freeman did well, but talk about like a plot line that just went nowhere. He could have been removed from the film entirely and would have had
That's probably true.
very little difference in terms of the main plot. And it was nice to see the connection between him and Val. That was unexpected.
Yes, let's talk about that for a second.
Go for it. What do you want to say?
Well, we've got the character Valentina DeFontaine, who has popped up in several things at this point. And if you're an astute MCU watcher, you've kind of seen her like start to build this second team behind the scenes with John Walker and Yelena and other people now. And we maybe know where that's going from some of the announced movies, but this movie, it's revealed that she is not only Everett Ross's ex-wife, but also is now the director of the CIA. So she's kind of placed herself pretty high in the government. I guess maybe she already was, and they just never explained her full role. I don't know, but it was
Yeah.
nice to see like I don't know what you want to say. Like she seems like this shadowy conspiracy leader figurehead, and like we had nothing on her other than these couple cameos here and there. So I mean, at least now maybe we know like she has some connections, and maybe she's manipulating or using her position to try to do this secondary objective, or maybe that's what the CIA has been up to. I don't know, but
Yeah. I'm excited for her to start doing something, but I'm gonna need that to start happening pretty soon here. Like they can only kind of tease her involvement for so long. Um, I know they like to tease the audience and like have us look forward to something, but it's like in terms of her character, just get to it already, please. Because I think Julie Louis-Dreyfus, she's a great actress. She's funny. Doesn't really have a chance to be funny in here, but I believe
yeah.
she probably has some dramatic chops too, and I'm looking forward to seeing her have a role and actually do something instead of just kind of like um cackle quietly in the background getting
Yeah.
ready for something.
That's yeah. Well, yeah. I don't know. I mean, we can talk about maybe a little more at the end, but I do feel like Phase 4 has expanded the MCU so large that there's now so many characters that like you can't. By the time you get back to one of their stories, it's like 3 or 4 years has passed now since you've even seen the mention of some of these people, and it's like
Yeah, that's true.
I do worry about that. May have expanded a little bit too quickly. And they still have like all the X-Men and Fantastic Four and stuff that aren't even in there yet. So I don't know, but who knows? Maybe Kang will wipe the floor with a bunch of people and clean up the MCU. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd be for it. I'm
Maybe
looking
clear
forward
up
to
some.
Kang.
Okay, what else we got here? Ramonda, Strip Store, Overdue. Oh, Koya Overdue. We talked about that already. Nakia, we talked about that already. Nakia.
I
Namor, you want to
guess,
talk about Namor?
yeah, we should probably talk about Namor and Shuri at some point.
Yeah,
I
we
think
should talk
we've
about them.
covered just about every other character except the protagonist and antagonist of the film. Namor, I was a fan of. I thought the actor did well. I really liked the glimpse into Helicon. I may be saying that wrong. But the parallels between that and Wakanda were, I mean, very on the nose, but
Yeah,
also at the same time, I thought well done. And like, oh, the music that's playing when they're kind of like exploring down there was really, really moving and very cool. My stupid brain was like, how do they speak to each other? Like trying to figure out the logistics of this
yeah.
underwater city. But for the most part, I was able to shut that up and just kind of enjoy what they were going for there.
No, I agree with you on the speaking part. Cameron and I talked about that. As my daughter talked to me about that too. And we are like, how do they talk underwater? Like, how does that work? So like,
He does towards the end. Namor makes a big speech, and like everyone can hear him, and everyone's like chanting back. So apparently they do just
they
speak to
do.
each other
It's
underwater.
just works
Yeah.
somehow. Um, yeah, I for the most part enjoyed this character as well. I think maybe I would have liked to see him be a little bolder than he was in this movie, but I
Mm.
think at the same time that kind of go back to what we talked about at the beginning, which is maybe he was bolder in the first draft of this movie, but then the focus kind of changed a little bit more in this
Oh,
draft of the movie.
interesting.
Maybe it was like more of a battle in the first version, and then it became family trauma in the second version. So I don't know, but I did enjoy him. I enjoyed his weird little feathers on his ankles, basically that let him jump and fly, which was super weird. I don't know. I guess that's comic accurate. I don't really know, but
Yeah, I don't know either. And those were weird, but at the same time, like his power set was pretty seemed pretty intimidating. And so
yeah,
like completely negated kind of the silliness of that.
yeah.
Like he can swim and fly. Come on,
Swim
that's
and
incredible.
fly. Has good strength. Um, but we also saw his weakness, I guess, in the movie as well, which Shuri picked up, I believe, was her, right?
Yeah, I think so. Oh, diffusion. Oh, somebody online, I can't take credit for this, but somebody online pointed out that when they're in Riri's dorm room, and Okoye says, "Good luck defeating Namor with a heater." Like that ended up being the plan. Like that's
Oh,
that's what
that's
they
funny.
did later, which I thought that's clever foreshadowing.
That is. I didn't catch that. That's pretty good.
I didn't either. I just read about it afterwards, which is
Yeah,
nice.
that's pretty funny. So Namor is another character who has, I mean, a lot of, if not, well, some family trauma as well, just like on the Wakandan side, but also some like historical race trauma, I guess, more or
Yeah,
less, where his people kind of retreated to the water essentially, and he was kind of the kid that was born underwater from the new subterranean version of the race, I guess. So that's one thing we should mention is I know some comic book fans are up in arms about this, but in the comics, he's the Prince of Atlantis, and this is all
right.
set in Atlantis, and they decided to switch it to like the Mayans in this version of it, which I'm totally cool with. Why not? I mean,
Yeah, I agree. I think it was probably to like avoid confusion with DC's Atlantis. Um, but yeah, I kind of liked bringing in the ancient Mayan aspect to it. That's a civilization that's not really like represented that often, and I think is pretty cool. I
yeah,
like the aesthetic of the whole thing, and to bring a Latino actor to the forefront is always a nice change of pace too. I
yeah,
thought
I
he did
agree.
a really great job.
Yeah, I
Um,
wanted to ask you, when you went to see this, did they have the Avatar preview before it?
yes, they did.
So that's a whole nother topic. But anyway, my point I was getting at here, did you notice how in this, well, okay, think about the Avatar preview for a second, which
Okay.
is part two, The Way of Water. And the shots are beautiful in this movie, again, just like they were in the first one. And this one is, the first one had a lot of sky shots and stuff like that. But this one, they showed a lot of water shots in the preview. And then we watched this movie right after it, which had a lot of water shots. So there's,
Underwater blue people. Yeah.
some comparisons you could make there. But what I was getting at is, did you notice how in this film they chose to like do like a water like lens effect every time they were underwater? It was
No, I
like
don't think I
it was
did.
like never clear. It was like there were like you're
Really?
looking through water at the characters in the movie, which was curious to me because they had just shown the Avatar preview, which was like so crystal clear with everything that was going on. It was almost
You're
like there
talking
was a
about
filter.
just the underwater portions or the whole movie?
No, just the underwater portions when they were
Okay.
underwater. Yeah. So I was going to ask if you had a preference of how it's presented on film, one way or the other, but
No, I think I'd have to do a more aware comparison
yeah, I mean
of
the
the
Avatar
two.
way works better because you can see everything just like they're above the water. But I did think it was kind of cool that they did it that way.
Yeah, man, we're agreeing on too much here. You're wrong, Cody.
No
The
doubt.
way Avatar sucks and this way is better.
No, Avatar does suck, and that's a different story.
Shit.
But
I mean, Avatar's awesome. Fuck you. We need Joe on here to rile shit up. This is we're agreeing too much. All right, let's talk about how their strategy. Okay, we know that Namor's gonna attack us again. We can choose anywhere to have this final battle. I know, the middle of the ocean. That's the best place to do it. We're gonna have one ship that'll be invisible only for like the first 5 seconds. Then we'll make it visible. We'll have like 2 or 3 aircraft that we'll bring in before Namor is diverted to the desert so that he can fly up and quickly take them out. But
yeah,
we won't have any aircraft after that.
yep,
Oh my god, I just
great
I don't
points.
I don't understand how. Oh, and also I was telling my wife Emily about this movie just like what I knew about it. And when I told her that, Namor, the sea master is the enemy, she's like, "Isn't Wakanda like landlocked? Like, how is that gonna work?" And I said, "Oh, I'm not sure." And then as soon as when they're arriving at Wakanda at the beginning of the movie, they're like approaching the river border, and I was like, "Oh, okay." let's really clearly show that there's a river running through
Yeah.
this country of Wakanda,
I like
this
how they like
main city.
flooded the village. It's like an
Yeah.
entrance method to attack the village, which was also kind of cool because like Namor attacked the village and then basically was like, that was your warning shot. And then he like left, and I was like, like
Yeah.
again, he's like not really a bad dude. Like he could have raised the whole city, it seemed like at that point, but
I mean,
um,
even at the end, like those Wakandans on the ship were fucked. Like
yeah.
he didn't need to seed. I mean, I know he did it to live, but
Yeah.
like I just wanted him to come back to the ship and see how much his people were kicking ass and be like, oh, never mind. Like
We're
for,
good.
forget our deal. Go ahead and kill the last 3 Wakandans huddled in one corner of their own ship. Like
Yeah.
clearly we got this. I don't know.
Which I mean, he does address that a little bit at the end, like the last scenes we see of him, where he's like, "Now they're indebted to us, and they will
That's
need
true.
help,
That's
and
true.
then they're going to come to us before they need anybody else."
What do you think about the fact that they left him alive at the end of this film?
Who, Namor?
Yeah, Namor.
I didn't expect him to die because I figure he's going to have a bigger role as this keeps going. So I was um telling my family a little bit, like in the comics, he's kind of like a bad guy at first too, and then turns into more or less a good guy as time goes
Oh,
on.
okay.
So I kind of figured the same thing will happen here, but I know he's on like some pretty high profile teams with like Doctor Strange and Reed Richards and stuff like that. So like his timing coming into the MCU could be pretty good, but I don't know if we've had a lot of characters in the MCU like blatantly kill a whole shit ton of people from the good side and then be like, I'm good now.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I don't know how that'll play out either, but
I feel like Marvel's doing this more where they'll like leave the villain alive, whereas it used to always be like that's your one movie villain,
yeah.
and then you're done.
Once they killed
I,
all the big villains off, they're like, we better stop doing that.
yeah, really. Uh, I don't know. I kind of feel the way they left him like we just got like chapter 1 of his story in the MCU, and in some ways I'm okay with that. Some ways I'm more than okay with that, but in other ways I feel like uh I don't know, we didn't really see like an arc from him. He just kind of was introduced, and now we'll see what happens with him later.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where he pops up next. Like, is he gonna have to wait for Black Panther 3 to come out? And who knows how many years that's gonna be, because I don't think that's announced anywhere down the line at this point.
Yeah,
Or is
absolutely.
he gonna pop up somewhere before all that? Or maybe I was trying to think, like maybe those big Avenger movies coming up, like maybe somebody would go to him and ask for help. Like, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see where he pops up again. I know one thing. I told Karen, like, I'm going into this movie kind of like, I told her of all the ones in the MCU, this is the one I kind of thought I knew what to expect plot wise.
Okay.
And they did kind of subvert those expectations quite a bit, because I had figured there would be some problem between the two races, and then slowly like they would get pushed into war, but not by the central characters. And I know the other two, I don't know, what are we calling them? Namorians? No, what are the people called?
Telecons?
Telecons,
I don't know.
Telokians. I don't know what they're called, but anyway, the
Namor's people, yeah.
the Atuma dude with the shark skull on his head is a bad guy in the comics,
Okay.
and so
Is
I
that the one who
figured,
Okoye fought on the bridge, the
yeah, on
spear
the
fight?
bridge
Okay.
fight, yeah. So I figured he was gonna like be kind of pulling the strings behind to get Namor to fight the Wakandans,
Ah,
and that
okay.
didn't happen at all. So I was actually pretty happy that I was completely off on what was going to happen there. But that definitely leads to like, he could be in the next installment the guy who ends up fighting Namor, and then maybe he turns good, he turns bad type thing. So that could be a little seed that's planted in there also.
Okay.
I got to ask you about this, because this was part that did genuinely shock me. What did you think when Shuri took the flower?
And the cameo there,
Yeah,
I was blown away. I
I
thought that
didn't
was
see it.
a brilliant stroke. No, I didn't see it at all. I was like, I was like, okay, she's got to either see her mother or her father, or they are gonna like CG Chadwick Boseman after all, and what I read was wrong, and
Well,
because
then when
that's where it seemed like it was going. But
she
what's that?
wakes up, like she's in the water.
Oh
So I
yeah.
leaned over to Cameron and actually said, like, oh shit, because this flower was made with Namor's version of the flower. Like, she's going to meet the water deities now. Nope.
Oh no, I didn't. That didn't cross. I did think it was cool that like she came out of the water and she was like immediately dry, like all her clothes were dry,
I didn't
and I
catch that.
thought that
Okay.
added to like a good dreamlike
Okay.
quality to it. And then the throne turned around and it
Boom.
was Killmonger.
Creed. Oh, Killmonger. Yes.
Michael B. Johnson. Jordan. Oops,
Jordan. Wrong
fucked it up.
basketball player.
Yep, wrong guy. Um, cut that. Uh, he, uh, oh my God, did he just kill it in the minute that they gave him in this film? Like, I always hate when the villain, especially in the origin story, is just the same power set as the good guy, but bad, and he was one of those villains essentially. And so like I thought that the actor did a good job, but I never liked the character more than in this one.
Okay.
um and especially like what he represented to Shuri in her arc, and how like she was furious that it was him that was there, but at the same time, like who else could it have been? And that whole thing, I don't know, it was really good. Like I really liked the Shuri's anger, and I legitimately fell for it for a little bit there and thought, are they making a villain out of her?
Hmm.
It seemed like they were, and I didn't fully believe it because it didn't seem like they just with man, just the tone of the whole film,
Yeah.
how it's uh I don't think they would do that to to T'Challa's sister after the passing of T'Challa, and after Chadwick Boseman. So if not for that, I would have bought into it even a little bit more.
Okay.
But as it was, like they had me somewhat convinced that that's where they were going with it.
Yeah, she was definitely drinking the Kool-Aid of vengeance and like just wanted to take her frustration out. Well, again, it was like her trauma. Like that's how she was processing everything that was happening, was just holding it inside and getting really angry at the world for losing her brother. And like, yeah, I think you're right. Like, what a fantastic cameo though, to like see him in there and then have him basically tell her like, you're not like him, you're like me. Like you want to see the
Yeah,
world burn and you're angry and you want revenge. And yeah, he was, I agree. Fantastic. Fantastic cameo. I did not see coming at all, but man, what a cool way to bring somebody back for just a couple moments.
I agree. I did kind of think, and I realized this afterwards, that the vengeance plot line is a bit overdone, especially because T'Challa did it in Civil War. Like he had the exact same thing where like his parent was killed.
Yep.
He was real mad about it, went after who he thought was the villain. In this case, it actually was the person who had killed the parent. And then in the end chose mercy. And to see Shuri do that same thing in a way was a nice parallel, and in a way was like, oh, we've really already done this.
Hmm.
And you're not surprising anyone, which is why I thought they might subvert it and actually have her just kill the fuck out of Namor. But oh well.
It did look like it for a second. That's for sure.
Well, she's the one who took a spear through the gut, and but then was fine. Also, not a drop of blood on the spear. She doesn't have any blood inside her body, apparently.
Oh, I didn't catch that part either. That's funny.
I don't know about that, but
They just put she just like got the suit back and called it good. It was
yep,
back
suit's
alive
like
somehow.
suit makes a little sound effect. She's okay.
She's just bleeding inside the whole rest of the movie. No worries. But no, you had mentioned like, so you enjoyed her performance in the film, or not so much? You're saying overall.
I definitely enjoyed her performance
You
in the
did.
film, especially in the parts that had to do with T'Challa's passing. Like I thought that she portrayed the grief of that very skillfully. Um, she and Angela Bassett in that throne room scene, holy fuck.
Yeah.
Like I've never thought in an MCU movie, as much as I love them, that like anyone deserved like an Oscar for their acting in it until Angela Bassett in that throne room. I was like, oh yeah, okay. She's absolutely killing it. And I've never really like known a lot of what she's doing as an actress. I was not the right target audience when Stella got her groove back in the late 90s.
Okay.
Um, but now I'm like, oh, I'll see anything she's in and have a better appreciation for her and her work. So that's very cool.
Yeah, I don't think it was a psych out, but from the trailer, I think they have the one line in there where she's like, haven't I given like my whole family or sacrificed everything or whatever? And I thought when the movie started, like that was going to be in that scene where she's like talking to the UN or whoever that was with all the countries. That's
Yeah.
where I thought that speech was going to come in. And then like she didn't say that. And I was like, oh shit, like something's going to go on later because that was in the trailer. And I hadn't really paid it that close of attention. Maybe I would have seen the background and recognized it more or something. But yeah, when she gives that speech in the throne room, like,
Yeah, I heard that line in the trailer, and she says, haven't I given enough? Sort of like, I've lost everything. And at the time, I was thinking, oh, does that mean like Shuri's gonna die too?
mm,
And by having Shuri be like abducted instead, that kind of covered
yeah,
that base without going to an extreme. And so I thought that was a well done little surprise,
yeah.
little twist on what my expectations are.
Abducted to a spa grotto where they eat black bananas. Yeah, life looked real hard.
Yeah, I don't. What would have happened if Nakia hadn't come in and rescued them? Like, would things have been okay? I don't know. It's hard to say.
Yeah,
It seemed like she and Namor were both like DTF and
right.
probably could have had some little mutant babies. Hey, Namor's a mutant, by the way. Did you
Yeah,
catch that? That was cool.
I didn't catch it, but I read it afterwards. So
He
we
said
have
the M word.
another M word sighting here. Look out.
So if he's there's a lot of theories online that like, oh, mutants are caused from the snap or from the blip or any number of other events. But I guess he was a mutant like 600 years ago or something.
Yeah,
So
doesn't seem to be the case.
yeah,
But um what else we got? I think we touched on most of the plot here and there.
yeah, I agree. Did you share my thought that Shuri shouldn't have become the new Black Panther? Like, I understand why, in terms of like, she's the protagonist, and therefore she gets to be, and like, she has the most to fight for, you might
Hmm.
say. But she's not a warrior, and I think like they specifically set up in the first Black Panther that like you win the right to be the Black Panther through a test of combat, a trial of combat. And so I just think that she, in the same way that at the end she sort of like gave up the throne, she should have also given up the her claim, that's what I'm looking for, to like to be the next Black Panther, to either Okoye or Nakia, who are far more suited for that role. Either
Hmm.
right at the beginning when she took the new flower, or like at the end of the film, kind of passed it on to
Passed
them.
it
But
on from there. Well, she was, I mean, I really liked her as the scientist type role.
yeah, absolutely.
And now that's obviously not going to work the same way or she's going to be a Black Panther who only plays guard duty back in Wakanda rather than goes out to the world. I don't know how that'll play out, but I don't know. I guess I didn't know because they kind of had hinted that there would be a new Black Panther in the movie, but they really tried to keep that under wraps for the longest time too, who it was going to be. But I mean, she seemed like the most guessable choice. But yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. The other ones could have played well. I think Nakia probably would have been a good choice. But then, well, let's talk about that other plot line we haven't covered yet. So you kind of touched on already here, but I didn't. Did she specifically say that she was giving up her right to the throne? Is that in the movie?
No, well, she just doesn't show up to the trial for the throne. So it's confusing because it seems like this trial in the past has been for it's to become the Black Panther. And it seems like the royalty
Yeah.
part of it is through lineage. And
Okay.
it just kind of has happened to both be the same person for a while now. That's my impression of it
That makes sense.
as a viewer. But at the end, they are they're in that ceremonial spot where the trial takes
Or wait,
place.
that'd be
And
backwards
then
for the end.
M'Baku shows up and he says something like, I'm here to fight for the throne.
Yeah.
So that seems to me like either she realized he was going to do that and is fine with it, or somehow didn't realize he was going to do that. But it seems to me like he's going to now be the ruler of Wakanda, and she will
She's going to
be
be
the
Black
Black
Panther.
Panther.
Hmm.
I don't, or is she just gonna hang out in Haiti for a while? I don't know.
Yeah, these are good points. I don't know the answer to that, and it kind of changes, like you're saying here, Shuri's role into something that I would rather not see her be compared to what she was. And
Agreed.
then similarly with Mbaku, I don't know. He might be a cool king, I guess, but like I kind of liked him as the outsider leader among the Wakandans also. But maybe
I
the
thought,
Wakandans are just kind of drawn so close after these two movies now that like he's just like whatever, I could be in charge of everything.
yeah, I mean, we saw him like be on the royal council, like he has a seat at the table now, which I really liked as a development for him and the culture as a whole. Um, but yeah, it seems like he's going to really be at the forefront and be their new ruler, unless someone else challenges him. But it didn't show that, so I think that's the implication.
Yeah. Well, so then we have, I guess, the last scene here in Haiti. So let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, let's do it.
So we get earlier in the movie, we should mention Queen Ramonda dies in the movie also, which I don't think we explicitly said, but
True.
she drowns saving Riri, right? Is that what happened? I think. Yeah, she gives her life basically to save Riri Williams, who's drowning in Wakanda, I believe, right? When that all
Yeah,
happened. Yeah.
yeah, during that first attack in Wakanda there. Yeah.
So at the end of this, then Shuri goes to visit Nakia in Haiti finally, where she's been for, I guess it's established, basically 6 years have gone by since the first movie or something with the timeline they tried to clear up here, I guess.
Yeah.
Looks good on paper. I just don't really follow it necessarily watching the movie, but and she has the second ceremonial robe from T'Challa's funeral that her mom had burned earlier in the movie when we first met Namor in that scene, and she had I don't know if it's just a piece of it. I don't know if they both had a piece of it or what it was exactly, but because
I think it was what they wore at his funeral was my impression.
Oh, okay, like they were cleansing themselves at the moment, more or less.
I could be wrong about that.
Yeah, well, either way, she has the robe that she's going to burn, and so there's a fire burning on the beach, and she burns it, and then this is Marvel's really like second attempt, I think, to kind of after the intro credits honor Chadwick Boseman.
Yeah,
where we just get like 30 scenes of him from prior films,
just
and
little flashes. Yeah,
and another silent scene, like you had mentioned earlier. And again, my theater was dead silent. I don't know about yours.
Oh, 100%.
It was I teared up a little bit, I'll be honest. There was some sniffling going on in the theater, I think, in that moment. And then that's kind of really classy way. Like the film ends there, and then we come back mid-credit, right? To Shuri still on the beach. And look out, here comes a little surprise for everybody. We know if Joe was here, what he'd say right about now. Black Panther has a son, apparently. With
he and Hulk's son have been hanging out.
Yeah.
Just waiting to take over their father's mantle.
I guess. So we got a little boy here whose French name basically is Toussaint, and his Wakanda name is T'Challa. So when they said that too, then I was like, well, should he be the rightful king then, or would it have been Shuri? Like, I don't know if it's a
Oh, interesting.
patriarchal or matriarchal
She's like,
society.
oh shit, I gotta get back so that we can maintain our claim to the throne. This was the part that I thought that I mentioned in our spoiler-free section, where I said there's one part that I thought was exploitative, and maybe that's too strong of a word, but just the fact that they name him T'Challa, and it doesn't sit right with me that they're like, don't worry, in the future we'll have T'Challa back in the form of this poor child. I did like, as I alluded to earlier, the explanation for Nakia's absence. I don't know what the plan would have been for that, if there was a plan, or if it was just one of the things that they just wouldn't address and pretend like didn't happen. So I like that about it, but it just overall didn't sit entirely right with me. That
maybe he'll just go by TJ. It'll be all right.
There you go. Like TC?
T'Challa Jr.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
TJ. Little TJ. Or maybe he'll go by Toussaint. Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe he'll do that version.
The kid himself, I thought, like, did a good job with the role. Usually kid actors are like really stilted and don't deliver very well, but I thought like he delivered everything beautifully. And
well, he was 22, so it's
he was definitely older than 6.
He played the kid very well.
As the parent of a 6-year-old, I'll tell you, he's definitely older than 6.
But, yeah, especially for a boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you got anything else on the actual movie? I just got like a couple last things here for me, but
I got a couple last things too. I hope they give Ryan Coogler more. I hope the MCU recognizes that he's on the rise and doing really well. And I would love to see, in the same way that the Russos like graduated from Captain America to like the Avengers as a whole. I hope that they give Ryan Coogler a team up film, or something beyond this IP, because I think he's really proving himself as a director and a writer, and can really bring some good stuff to the MCU that's a little different than what everything that's come before.
Yeah, I wonder if he has interest in that. I haven't read anything, as far as if he's open to
I don't know,
just mass directing superhero movies, or if he wants to, maybe it's the only one he wants. I don't really know.
That's a good call. Yeah, it's not necessarily what he would be after, but I hope they at least give him an opportunity, because I would like to see him do more.
Yeah.
I also have a little game for you.
Oh no.
Called Who Said It?
Oh no.
So I'm gonna give you a quote, and you tell me whether this quote comes from Letitia Wright or Donald Trump Jr.
Oh, I brought this upon myself.
So I'll just do 3 of them. I'll keep this short and sweet.
Okay.
First one. If you don't conform to popular opinions, but ask questions and think for yourself, you get canceled.
Oh God. I'm gonna say that is Letitia Wright.
Correct.
Yes.
All right. How about this one? At this point, you kind of know me well enough. It's like if I'm not canceled a couple of times a day, I get worried.
Donald Trump Jr.?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Here's the last one. This is the trickiest one. Watch out.
All right.
It's not.
Oh.
I think there was a time in my life, probably in college, that I wished every guy was gay because it meant more women for me. I don't know what everyone's problem with it is. I wish everyone was gay. That's always the way I thought about it. I have no issue with it. If I have to suffer through marriage, why shouldn't they? See if you can crack that one.
I'm gonna say Donald Trump Jr.
He's 3 for 3, folks.
Yes.
Congratulations.
That's awesome. Oh, that's good.
That's all I have.
Last couple things I had. That's awesome. Thanks for that. Last couple things I had was this there was, like you kind of alluded to, there was battles in this movie, but not a ton of action per se. So more of a character driven story. And I was just curious. I want to see like how this performs. B, I want to see like what
Yeah.
the reception of this is like a few weeks out from its debut, and see what people are kind of saying about it, like where the score goes up, down. Because I don't feel necessarily like the character stories in the MCU have done well. And I was just trying to think of like recent ones. Like I consider the Eternals more of a character story. That was kind of panned in the films, but She-Hulk's more of a character story, really, and that obviously was destroyed for many reasons. Miss Marvel, I think, did okay, didn't it, for ratings from people?
I think it was pretty low
Was it pretty low
in terms
also?
of viewership numbers. It was low.
Okay.
In terms of critical reception, I think it did pretty well.
Okay. All right. So I was trying to think of things that like, I mean, Namor's huge, and his race of people, whatever we're gonna call them, the Talokians or whatever,
Yeah.
are huge as well. But definitely was like a story to like further the story of the pre-existing characters themselves. So I'm just kind of curious where this will go. And then the last question I had here for you, I guess, and I'll think about this too, but like, what effect do you think this is going to have on the MCU moving forward? Like, how will the events and characters from this film play into future ones, do you think? With regards to, we had some new characters introduced here, we have a new race of people, the oceans are now populated in the MCU, we have big changes on Wakandan soil at this point. We also have the, like, we didn't mention in too much detail here, but there's also like the subplot of the pre-existing nations, the quote unquote real nations of Earth, want to come for the vibranium as well.
Yeah, they were definitely setting that up.
So I don't know. What do you think, this will have some ties to some other stories, or do you expect like some of these characters to have bigger roles as this moves on?
I don't know. This is a great question. Hmm. I mean, if you're specifically looking at the idea of America coming after vibranium, if they're doing armor wars, which I don't know much about other than that it's called armor wars,
The armor.
you would think that vibranium would be a pretty good thing to build armor out of, and
Yeah.
so uh, we could bring that concept back in at that point. Um, I don't know. It's interesting to think of how Namor will fit in and how Shuri will fit in, and if they'll be uh joined at the hip from here on out, or kind of split off to each do their own thing in the larger scope of the grand story.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't really have any predictions, but I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think Namor's probably out of this movie the one I'm most intrigued by, like where he goes in the next 5 or 7 years in the MCU, because he probably could pop up in a lot of places just depending on what they do with him, and he's gonna stick to loyal to his country or become like a hero, or if he, I mean, he still could be a full villain, I mean, he still could go that route, which is an advantage they have by not killing him off in this film, is they could really write him to do whatever role they need him to do right now, at least going forward, and it would be semi believable. As far as the Wakandans, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of interesting what happens from here. I feel like Ironheart may play a larger role in the MCU going forward than the actual people from Wakanda will. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know. Will be interesting to see what happens with Shuri and the new Black Panther, which she does have Killmonger's colors, right? I'm colorblind, but that was my take on that, is she picked his colors for her helmet.
Like the black and gold.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was, yeah. So I mean,
It's an interesting parallel that I hadn't realized. I didn't
to
put that
what you
together.
said, too. I mean, who knows? Maybe she still slips and goes back to. You'd have to think they would have did that in this movie, though, right? Like she can't go villain after this.
I agree. And I agree. I wish that I can see why they didn't have that, but coming off of Doctor Strange and Wanda's um somewhat obfuscated reasons for becoming a villain. Like, I kind of wish that they had gone through it this time, because it was such a clear path, that made sense character wise. I want to see more heroes become villains and villains become heroes, because that's a very interesting thing as a viewer. Um, and they had a chance here and they didn't take it, and I understand why, but I wish they had.
Yeah, if we had a hero go villain for more than the movie that they're confused in, like if we had one flip that way.
I don't think. I mean, Loki has straddled that line a
Okay.
lot, of course. Other than Wanda, has anyone else?
I mean, Abomination seems like a good guy
Abomination.
now,
Yeah, that's true.
but that's good. Like that's trying to think if anybody's flipped bad that we've seen so far.
Just Wanda, really.
Yeah, I guess so.
I want more of that though.
Yeah. Well, we'll find out in Secret Invasion that half the people we're talking about are all Skrulls anyway, so it won't matter. So
That'd be cool, man. Wish they had done that. I always thought that maybe Black Widow was. And oh, you
ooh.
know what? I mean, I think I've spoken about this before, maybe not on the podcast, but at the end of Spider-Man 2, when they reveal that Fury and Maria Hill were Skrulls for the duration of that film,
Yeah.
I had been excited thinking that Maria Hill has been a Skrull this whole time, because it
Oh.
would kind of explain her devotion to Fury and just, I don't know, make her character more interesting. So for that split second when she turns into a Skrull before he did, I was like, I was right. And then Fury turned into a Skrull too, and I was way wrong. Um, but I would love if somebody has been a Skrull all along, if as long as it makes sense, which it would have for Maria Hill in my mind.
Yeah, because I don't know if
Yeah.
they can mimic powers, can they? I think only the comic Super Skrull can do the Fantastic Four powers, but I don't know if they can. Like if I'm playing Thor, I don't think I can magically control lightning all of a sudden.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So
Not
Maria
unless
Hill would have
he's
been a good choice.
imbued you and several dozen other children with the power of Thor.
The whole daycare must attack. Love that. Um, what else we got here? Well, you want to rate this bad boy? You want to talk about what's on tap? I mean,
Yeah, we can give numbers. Um
let me go
Although
first. You
I'm
want to go first?
yeah, you go first, please,
I'll
because
go first. That's
I'm
fine.
so
So
torn.
this, as I said from the outset on this is really a story that hits a different tone than most of them because of Chadwick Boseman's passing, but it really is a story about trauma from all angles, and I really appreciated that as kind of something different. It still felt like a Marvel movie, but like you had sadness, you had anger, you had resentment, you had revenge. I mean, Namor had trauma, Black Panther's family had trauma, like the whole country as well. And just seeing like how everybody processed that, and like Shuri almost going to the dark side, and the mom being like, my son's dead, that's terrible, I got to still run this kingdom and keep everything moving along. And like it was just all these different little pieces that added up to this big puzzle of where this property went from here. And then of course the fact that we know the circumstances behind this and everything. I really do wonder what the other version of this would have looked like if he had not passed, because for as popular as
Oh
he
God, yeah.
was, and I mean, when the first movie came out, I do feel like because it made $1 billion, it was huge.
It was huge,
Um,
yeah.
and I think it meant so much to Black culture in general
Yeah.
that they had that representation on the screen. And we had, I think Falcon was around before that, and we had some other people too, maybe, but that
It
was
was all
like,
sidekick shit.
yeah, that it was
Like,
their culture or I shouldn't say there, but it was African culture, and it was, African fashion and dances and
yeah,
customs, and like it was all
absolutely.
represented. It was beautiful. Um, I do feel like more could have happened in the movie, but I recognize why it didn't. So I'm going to put this at a 7.5 and bump it right away to an 8, just because of the circumstances here and kind of doing a good job of honoring Chadwick Boseman with the film. So I'm going to go 8 out of 10.
Oh man, I'm really torn on this one. Like at any given time, I would put it between like a 5 and an 8. So maybe I should just split the difference there. But I don't know. When I was making my notes here, I separated my bullet points into uh the good and the bad. And the bad had more bullet points. So I was like, oh, that's probably indicative. But just I think my mind has changed throughout the course of this conversation. Um, so it's subject to change at any given moment.
Hmm.
But I think I'm gonna skew to the higher end of that spectrum and give it a 7.5, which
Okay.
is pretty high for me. Yeah, we'll see how that changes over time.
Because you usually rank yours against other properties in the MCU,
Yeah,
if I
yeah. So like
recall.
a
So
5 is like truly middle ground where like the things above it I want to watch more and I think we're better, and below it is the opposite. And yeah, 7.5 is pretty high for me.
yeah, that's pretty high then on your scale for sure. All right. Well,
Especially for something, as I said before, that isn't fun in
yeah,
because I love fun. I love action sequences and humor, both of which the MCU provides. You know,
yeah.
so much of. And this wasn't that, but I also like applaud this for not being that and think that it was very successful at being something other than that.
Yeah, we don't got a lot. We just have Riri is kind of a little bit of a comic character here and there,
Yeah.
and Mbaku chewing on a carrot. That's really the
That's pretty much it.
that's pretty much it. But he doesn't know when to bite the carrot for dramatic effect the most. So yeah. So did you have I'm sure you must have, you also have the preview for Quantumania,
Yeah,
Ant-Man. Are you excited for that one?
I am. I think it'll be cool. I think it'll I don't know, it's weird to have the third movie in a franchise like Ant-Man feel so much like a setup for future things.
Hmm.
In terms of Kang and his upcoming story arc. So maybe it won't be as much a beginning as it seems like in that trailer, and it will feel like more of an end or a midpoint. But that's my impression of it so far.
Okay.
How about you?
Yeah, I'm pretty excited for it. Karen even said she was excited for it, and she's not very high on Ant-Man as a character or his movies. So I'm excited for it just to see yet another like area within the MCU that like hasn't been explored as fully as it can yet. I'm curious to see how Kang fits into the puzzle, like
Yeah,
on the big screen, and if he's down in, I guess I don't even know how that works. Like, was it Janet? Is Janet
yeah.
the older of the Van Dynes? Was
Hmm.
basically implying that there's something down there, which I assume to be Kang. She doesn't say that outright, but so then has he like been down there the whole time? And if so, like who did Loki meet? Like there's questions. So I hope they come up with some reasonable answers is my biggest thing. Like make the math work for the universe, but then stick to the math and make it make
Well,
sense.
there are multiple Kangs. Like that's
Well, now there
his
are,
his whole thing.
right? But
No, that's
there weren't before though. He was the last one. That's why he was
well,
he who
he was the last
remains.
one, but that's because he was at the end of time. Like, of course, he was the last one.
Well,
He's the only one that was still around at the end of time.
oh, is it the end of time? Oh,
Yeah.
I guess they travel. I don't know. Anyway. But that's what I'm saying. I just hope whatever they do with this, it makes sense, to be perfectly frank. He does in the trailer, he calls Ant-Man Ant-Man,
Yeah.
but I think I saw in a different trailer, like I don't know, someplace overseas or something, there's a little bit of a different line in that part of the trailer.
I've heard that
Oh, okay.
line.
All right. You know the line then.
It's like from the D23 Expo or
Okay.
something.
That must be it.
And I'm looking forward to him being
Look out.
villainous.
Look out.
I'm
God.
excited.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. I mean, they gotta, if he's going to be the big bad, they gotta have some stakes raised up here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Give the reason for the audience to hate him more than just because he's the bad guy. So, Awesome. Cool. Any last thoughts today, Mr. Dave?
No, this has been a good one.
No.
We went longer than I thought we would based on it just being the two of us, but I felt like I had a lot to say about this one, so I was happy to have the space. Could have used a little more arguing to represent our podcast
Oh,
as a
I
whole,
wanted
but
less arguing, so yeah, but well, there we are. Yeah, we're not too far apart, I guess, half point. So sweet. All right. Well, I think, dear audience, next week we're scheduled to check out the Rings of Power, I think, from Amazon. So we're gonna
nice.
head back to there and check that out. You said you did watch that, you said, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll check that out and get back to you all next week again. Dave, do we want to do a song with just the two of us?
I don't know. Is that a good idea?
I don't know.
Friends
Friends
who this time mostly agreed
mostly
with each
occasionally with each
other.
other and are not disagreeing. All right, we'll see you next time,
Beautiful.
everybody. Take care.
Bye.